The air smelled of smoke and metal as the prison gates slammed shut behind Daniel. He had been dragged through the alien corridors for what felt like hours, his wrists bound with cold, humming restraints. Every step echoed in the long marble hall, making the place seem even more empty. He could feel eyes on him from the shadows. The guards, tall and armored, kept their weapons close. None of them spoke a word, but their movements said everything. This was no ordinary prison transfer. They were taking him somewhere important. The chamber they entered looked ancient. Its walls were carved with strange runes that glowed faintly, as if alive. At the far end stood a throne made of silver and crystal. Upon it sat the alien queen herself. She was unlike any creature Daniel had seen. Her emerald green skin seemed to shimmer under the light. A golden crown with embedded gems rested on her head, each jewel pulsing softly. Her black hair fell over her shoulders like a dark river. She sat with a stillness that was not human, but her eyes cold and calculating studied. Him like a puzzle she had waited centuries to solve. The guards forced Daniel to his knees. He heard a low hum fill the air, like a deep vibration in the floor. It was coming from the crown. He glanced up just in time to see one of the gems flicker brighter. A few guards shifted uneasily. The queen's lips pressed into a thin line. But she said nothing. Daniel felt his heart race. He didn't know what they wanted from him, but he knew this was no trial or interrogation. Something else was happening. "Bring him closer," the queen said, her voice calm but sharp. The guards obeyed, dragging Daniel forward until he was right at the foot of her throne. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze never leaving his. "You are human," she said, almost as if tasting the word. "Your kind does not belong here." And yet, her eyes flickered toward the crown, and Daniel noticed it was glowing stronger now. A ripple of whispers passed through the guards. He couldn't understand their language, but their nervous glances told him they were worried. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but the queen raised a hand. The crown's light flared suddenly, sending a warm glow across the hall. The hum grew louder, echoing off the walls like a living heartbeat. One of the older guards actually stepped back, his eyes wide with something like fear. The queen's expression shifted, still regal, but now with a trace of shock. "Impossible," she whispered under her breath. "It has rejected every heir. For over 400 years. It cannot choose a human." The room tensed. The guards gripped their weapons, unsure of what this meant. Daniel had no idea why a glowing crown mattered so much, but it was clear he had just broken some ancient rule. The queen stood, and for the first time, Daniel saw her full height taller than him, her gown flowing like liquid silver and green. She stepped down from the throne and circled him slowly, her eyes studying every detail of his face. "Tell me, prisoner, do you know what this crown is?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "It is the Crown of Auralith," she said. "It accepts only the true ruler of our people. It has rejected kings, warriors, even my own bloodline. And now it glows for you." Her words sent another wave of whispers through the hall. Daniel felt heat rising in his face. "I'm no ruler," he said quietly. "I'm not even from this world." The queen tilted her head, almost amused. "Perhaps that is why," she said. "Perhaps our world no longer needs one of us. But one of you." The glow of the crown pulsed again, brighter than before. The queen's voice hardened. "Or perhaps human. This is a curse that will bring ruin to us both." Before Daniel could answer, the sound of heavy boots filled the hall. Another figure entered, an alien noble in deep red armor, eyes burning with anger. "Your Majesty," he barked. "This is blasphemy. The crown cannot belong to a prisoner, and certainly not to an off-worlder." His hand moved toward the hilt of his blade. Daniel's instincts screamed danger. The queen raised her hand, stopping him in place. "Enough, Lord Ceryn," she said coldly. "The crown has spoken. You will not challenge it, But Lord Ceryn did not back down. If the crown has chosen wrongly, it must be tested. The human must face the trial of succession. If he survives, he may claim what is his. If not, his voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Daniel's stomach tightened. He didn't know what a trial of succession was, but he had no doubt it would be deadly. The Queen's eyes flickered with something unreadable. She turned to Daniel. "It seems your fate will be decided sooner than you think." Daniel's wrist still ached from the restraints as the guards pulled him from the throne room. The Queen's words and the glow of the crown replayed in his mind over and over. He didn't understand how a piece of alien royalty could choose him, a prisoner who had stumbled into their war. Yet everyone in the room had reacted as though it was the most important thing that had happened in centuries. The corridor they dragged him through was long and cold, lit by strips of pale blue light along the walls. Alien guards marched on either side of him, their armor clinking with each step. None spoke, but Daniel could feel their resentment. He was sure most of them wanted him dead before the so-called trial of succession even began. The thought made him tense, his mind racing to figure out what kind of trial it could be. When they reached the holding chamber, the door hissed open to reveal a bare stone cell. There was no bed, no water, no comfort, only a single torch that flickered faintly in one corner. The guards shoved him inside, and the door slammed shut with a metallic thud. Daniel sat on the floor, leaning his back against the cold wall. His pulse was still fast, but now the silence around him was heavier than the noise. He could almost hear his own thoughts too clearly. Hours might have passed before the sound of the door unlocking broke the stillness. A figure stepped in, not a guard, but a tall, thin alien with deep green skin and pale eyes. He wore no armor, only dark robes with silver patterns. "Human," he said softly, "do you know what you have done?" Daniel shook his head. The stranger stepped closer. "The crown has not chosen in my lifetime, nor my father's, nor his father's. You have awakened something that may destroy you." Daniel frowned. "Then why not just let me go? I didn't ask for this." The alien's lips curved in a humorless smile. "Because the crown's choice is law. It cannot be undone. And there are those who will kill you to keep you from taking the throne. You will face the trial in the morning." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "My name is Ceryn. I will see you again, if you survive." The night was long. Daniel tried to sleep, but every sound made him open his eyes. Footsteps in the corridor, the distant clang of weapons. At one point, he swore he heard whispers just outside his door, though he couldn't make out the words. His mind was full of questions about the Queen. She had seemed shocked, but she hadn't looked angry. That worried him almost more than open hostility would have. If she had plans for him, he had no idea whether they were for his survival or his downfall. When morning came, the guards returned, their armor glinting in the pale light. They pulled him from the cell and led him through a series of halls that opened into an arena. The air was thick with the roar of the crowd. Tier upon tier of alien faces watched from above, some shouting curses, others silent but tense. The arena floor was a wide circle of stone, marked with strange glowing lines that shifted and moved like living fire. The Queen sat on a high balcony overlooking the arena, the crown on her head still faintly glowing. Beside her stood Lord Ceryn, his red armor shining, his gaze locked on Daniel with open hatred. "Prisoner," the Queen's voice rang out, amplified so all could hear, "you stand before the people to face the trial of succession. Should you survive, the crown's choice will be honored. Should you fall, your body will be returned to the dust of this world." Daniel barely had time to process her words before the ground trembled beneath him. From one of the gates across the arena, a massive creature emerged, its body armored in bone-like plates, eyes glowing a deep crimson. Its mouth opened to reveal rows of jagged teeth, and its roar shook the air. The crowd erupted in cheers and cries. Daniel's stomach turned cold. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his will to stay alive. "Begin," the queen commanded. The creature charged. Daniel barely dove to the side in time, the ground cracking where the beast's claws struck. He scrambled to his feet, scanning for anything he could use. Along the edge of the arena, he spotted a fallen spear, likely left from a previous fight. Sprinting toward it, he could hear the creature's heavy steps pounding closer. He grabbed the spear just as the beast swung. Its tail, the impact throwing him several feet across the floor. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself up, spear in hand. The crowd's noise blurred into a distant hum as he focused only on the monster before him. The glowing lines on the arena floor shifted suddenly, forming a path beneath his feet. He didn't know why, but his instincts told him to follow it. He moved along the glowing path, dodging another strike, and the lines seemed to guide him straight to the creature's unarmored flank. Daniel drove the spear forward with all his strength. The tip pierced through, and the beast let out a roar of pain. It thrashed violently, trying to throw him off, but Daniel held on until the creature collapsed to the ground. The arena fell, silent for a heartbeat, and then the crowd erupted again, this time not just in anger, but in shock. Daniel stood over the fallen beast, breathing hard, the glowing lines fading beneath his feet. From her balcony, the queen's eyes narrowed. The crown's light flared once more, brighter than it had the night before. "The trial is complete," she declared, her voice calm but carrying a weight that silenced the arena. "The crown has chosen, and now we must decide what to do with its choice." The roar of the crowd still echoed in Daniel's ears as the guards led him out of the arena. His clothes were torn, and dust clung to his skin, but he walked without stumbling. The memory of the beast falling at his feet felt unreal, like it had happened to someone else. He had no idea how he had survived, but the glowing lines on the arena floor stayed in his mind. They had guided him, almost as if the crown itself had been helping him from afar. The guards didn't speak as they marched him through the palace corridors. Their grips on his arms were tight, but different from before, less like they were dragging a prisoner, and more like they were escorting something dangerous. Daniel caught glimpses of servants peering from doorways, their eyes wide, whispering in hushed tones. It was clear the news of his victory had already spread through the palace. They brought him to a smaller chamber than the throne room, but it was still grand. The floor was made of black stone polished like glass, and tall windows let in the pale light of the alien sky. The queen was already there, standing near a table with a decanter of deep blue liquid. Lord Ceryn stood by her side, his red armor gleaming, his glare never leaving Daniel. Two other nobles Daniel had not seen before were also present, their robes heavy with gold stitching. "Leave us," the queen said to the guards. They obeyed, stepping back and closing the doors. The silence that followed felt heavy. The queen's gaze locked on Daniel. "You have passed the trial of succession. By our ancient law, the crown's choice is binding. You are, by right, the ruler of this people." Her words were formal, but there was no warmth in them. "However," she continued, "there are complications." Lord Ceryn's voice was sharp. "Complications? This is an outrage. The law is for our people, not for some off-world creature who stumbled into our war. We must reject this farce." Daniel could see the other nobles nodding slightly, their eyes filled with suspicion. The queen raised her hand, silencing him. "The crown does not lie. But whether the people accept it is another matter. We have enemies beyond these walls who will see this as weakness. Already they prepare to strike." Daniel frowned. "If I'm such a problem for you, then why not just let me go?" The queen stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Because human, letting you go would not end this. Your survival in the trial has been witnessed by thousands. If you vanish, rumors will spread, factions will rise, and our realm will collapse into war. You are no longer just a prisoner, you are a symbol. And symbols cannot simply disappear. Ceryn, the robed alien Daniel had met in his cell, entered through a side door. His presence seemed to draw the Queen's attention. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head, "the factions in the east have already sent word. They demand the human be tested further, or they will declare him an impostor and raise arms." Lord Ceryn smirked at the news. "Then it is settled. Let him face another trial, one that will not be so forgiving." The Queen's eyes narrowed, but she did not dismiss the idea outright. She turned to Daniel. "There's another tradition. Before a ruler can be crowned, they must retrieve the Heart of Auralith from the ruins beyond the shattered plains. Many have tried. Most have not returned." Her voice softened, though her eyes stayed cold. "If you survive this, the people will have no choice but to accept you. If you fail, your death will end this matter without bloodshed in my court." Daniel took a slow breath. He could feel the weight of every gaze in the room. "And if I refuse?" he asked. Lord Ceryn's lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. "Then I will cut you down where you stand, and no one will stop me." The Queen didn't speak, but she didn't deny it either. Daniel knew his choice was no choice at all. The Queen stepped back toward the table and poured a small amount of the blue liquid into a crystal cup. She handed it to Daniel. "Drink. It will restore your strength for the journey. You leave at dawn." He hesitated before taking it, unsure if it was a gift or a test. The liquid was cool and sweet, and as it slid down his throat, he felt the ache in his muscles fade slightly. As the meeting ended, Ceryn approached him quietly. "The shattered plains are not what they seem," he said under his breath. "If the crown truly chose you, it may guide you again. But be warned, the plains are filled with more than monsters. The crown's enemies will be waiting." He glanced toward Lord Ceryn, whose eyes burned with unspoken plans. That night, Daniel was given a better room than the cell, though it was still guarded. He stood by the window, staring out at the alien city bathed in silver moonlight. Far in the distance, jagged peaks tore into the sky. He guessed that was where the shattered plains lay. Somewhere out there was the Heart of Auralith. And the truth of why a crown that had rejected all others had chosen him. The first light of dawn painted the alien city in shades of pale gold and green. As Daniel was led from the palace gates, a small group awaited him outside, 3 guards in silver armor, Ceryn in his dark robes, and a beast-like creature harnessed as transport. Its sleek body shimmered like polished stone, and its 6 legs moved with quiet precision. Beyond the walls, the horizon stretched toward jagged cliffs, where the shattered plains began. Lord Ceryn stood near the gate, his red armor gleaming in the morning sun. He offered no words of farewell, only a cold stare. Daniel could feel the weight of that stare as he climbed onto the beast's back. He didn't need anyone to tell him Ceryn wanted him to fail. In fact, Daniel suspected the man would ensure it. The journey began in silence. The road wound through rolling fields covered in strange blue grass that shimmered like water when the wind moved through it. The guards kept their eyes on the path ahead, but Ceryn rode beside Daniel, speaking in a low voice. "The shattered plains were once whole," he said. "A great city stood there until the Heart of Auralith was taken. The land itself broke apart in anger, or so the old tales say. The heart must be returned to the crown's chosen, or our people will remain divided forever." Daniel frowned. "And if I can't find it?" Ceryn looked at him for a long moment. "Then the crown chose wrongly, and you will not leave the plains alive." His words carried no malice, only certainty. Daniel wondered if this journey was truly about proving himself to the people, or if it was simply a way to remove him without blood in the Queen's court. By midday, the fields gave way to rock and dust. The air grew dry, and the wind carried the faint taste of metal. In the distance, Daniel saw the ground itself split into massive cracks and chasms. Shards of stone jutted upward like the bones of some long-dead giant. It was a landscape that felt hostile even before they had entered it. The group stopped at the edge of a deep rift. A narrow bridge of ancient stone stretched across, its surface cracked and weathered. "We cross here," one of the guards said. But as they began, Daniel's instincts prickled. Halfway across, a shadow moved below. He stopped, scanning the dark chasm beneath the bridge. Something shifted again, slow, deliberate. Before he could warn the others, the stone beneath the lead guard split. A creature burst upward, its body like a mass of black tendrils wrapped around a skeletal frame. Its mouth opened in a silent scream before lashing out. The guard fell with a cry, vanishing into the chasm. The beast turned its glowing eyes toward Daniel. Chaos erupted. One guard drew his blade, hacking at the tendrils, while the other tried to steady the panicked transport beast. The bridge shook violently. Ceryn shouted something in his own language, but Daniel didn't hear it clearly. He saw only the creature lunging toward him, its movements too fast for something so large. Without thinking, he grabbed the fallen guard's spear and thrust it forward. The spear struck true, piercing one of the glowing eyes. The beast recoiled with a high-pitched screech, pulling back into the shadows below. The bridge groaned under their weight, and cracks spread rapidly. "Run!" Ceryn shouted. They sprinted the rest of the way, the stone breaking apart behind them. By the time they reached the other side, half the bridge had collapsed into the chasm. Breathing hard, Daniel glanced back at the destruction. The guard who had fallen was gone, and the group was smaller now. The remaining two exchanged grim looks. "That was no accident," Ceryn said quietly. "The beasts of the plains rarely attack the bridge unless they are driven to it." His eyes narrowed toward the horizon. "Someone knew we would be here today." They pressed on, moving deeper into the plains. The landscape was a maze of jagged rock towers and narrow paths, each turn revealing more shattered ground. Strange glowing plants grew between cracks, casting eerie light on their faces as the sun dipped lower. Daniel's mind replayed the attack on the bridge. If someone wanted him dead, they might try again before he even reached the heart. As night fell, they made camp in the shelter of a rock overhang. The air was cold, and the alien stars burned bright above. Daniel sat near the small fire, turning the events of the day over in his head. He caught Ceryn studying him from across the flames. "What is it?" Daniel asked. Ceryn's voice was low. "When you fought the beast, the lines on the bridge glowed faintly. I have only seen that once before in the arena, when the crowns will guide your steps. The crown is not with you in body, but it is with you in spirit." Daniel looked into the fire. He didn't know whether that made him feel safer or more afraid. If the crown truly had power, then others might sense it too. And in a place like this, power was as much a curse as a gift. Somewhere in the darkness beyond their camp, he thought he heard movement. Not the skittering of small creatures, but the deliberate tread of feet. Watching, waiting, the wind cut through the shattered plains like a living thing, carrying dust and a low, mournful howl. Daniel's group moved at a steady pace the next morning, the pale light revealing more jagged chasms and towering shards of stone. The ground beneath their feet seemed unstable, and every step felt like it might give way. Even the guards glanced nervously at the cracks in the earth. They followed a narrow path between two massive cliffs. Strange markings covered the stone symbols that glowed faintly, just like the runes in the Queen's throne room. Daniel reached out to touch one, and the faint warmth under his fingers made him pause. Ceryn stepped closer. "Old wards," he explained. "They were placed here to keep the Heart of Auralith hidden. Only the chosen can pass through without waking the plains guardians." Daniel didn't know if the crown's choice truly gave him that right, but as they passed the markings, nothing stirred. The guards exchanged glances. One muttered something in their language, but Ceryn shot him a warning look. The silence that followed felt uneasy. By midday, the cliffs gave way to a vast open stretch, a sunken basin surrounded by jagged peaks. In the center stood a structure unlike anything Daniel had seen, half temple, half fortress, built from smooth black stone that caught the light like glass. A wide stairway led to its entrance, and two massive statues of armored figures stood guard at the base. Their eyes glowed faintly, following the group's movements. They reached the base of the stairs. The guards hesitated, their hands resting on their weapons. "This is where we stop," one said flatly. Ceryn frowned. "We agreed you would protect him to the heart itself." The guard shook his head. "No farther. Too many who enter never return." His gaze shifted to Daniel. "If you are the chosen, you won't need us anyway." Daniel felt the weight of the moment. If this was a trap, he was walking into it alone. But he had come too far to turn back. He started up the stairs, Ceryn following close behind. The air grew colder with each step, and a faint hum reached his ears, the same kind of hum he had heard when the crown first glowed for him. Inside, the temple was lit by floating orbs of pale light. The walls were covered in more runes, and the air smelled faintly of something metallic. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat a pedestal carved from the same black stone. Resting on it was a crystal the size of a human heart, pulsing with deep golden light. Daniel didn't need to be told. This was the Heart of Auralith. As he stepped forward, the hum grew louder. His vision blurred, and for a moment, the temple faded. He saw Flash's armies marching under alien skies, the crown shining on the head of rulers, battles that tore the land apart. Then he saw the queen, her face younger, standing alone in the ruins. The vision shifted again, and he saw himself not wearing chains, but standing on the throne with the crown upon his head. The glow was so bright it hurt his eyes. He staggered. Clutching his head, Ceryn caught his arm. "What did you see?" Daniel shook his head, trying to steady his breathing. "The crown. It's showing me things. I don't know if they're real or just meant to push me forward." Ceryn's gaze was sharp. "The crown shows only what is possible, but it does not say which path will bring it." Daniel stepped onto the platform and reached for the heart. The moment his fingers touched it, the glow flared. The hum became a deep, resonant tone that filled the temple. The runes on the walls lit up all at once. Outside, the statue's eyes blazed brighter, and a low rumble shook the ground. From the shadows near the entrance, movement caught Daniel's eye. The two guards who had refused to enter were now inside, weapons drawn not toward him, but toward Ceryn. "By order of Lord Ceryn," one snarled, "the human dies here, and the heart returns to the queen." They moved quickly, one rushing for Daniel, the other blocking Ceryn's path. Daniel gripped the heart in one hand and swung his other arm up just in time to block the blade. The force of the strike sent pain shooting up his arm, but he twisted away, feeling the crystal's warmth spread through his body. Without thinking, he swung it toward his attacker. A burst of golden light exploded from the heart, throwing the guard backward into the wall. Ceryn had drawn a curved blade from under his robe, clashing with the second guard in a flurry of sparks. The air hummed louder now, the temple itself seeming to respond to the heart in Daniel's grasp. He didn't understand how, but the crystal made him feel stronger, faster. He stepped forward, striking the remaining guard's weapon aside. The golden light flared again, and the man collapsed. Silence fell, broken only by the fading hum. Ceryn looked at Daniel with a mixture of awe and urgency. "You must return to the queen now. With the heart in your hands, no one can deny the crown's choice. But know this: Ceryn will not stop. He will come for you before you reach the city." Daniel nodded, tightening his grip on the heart. The vision of himself on the throne still burned in his mind. but so did the image of armies marching toward war. If the crown had chosen him, it was not for peace alone, it was for something much larger and far more dangerous. The return journey to the city was faster, but far more dangerous. Daniel and Ceryn moved quickly through the shattered terrain, the Heart of Auralith secured in a cloth pouch at Daniel's side. The golden glow still leaked faintly through the fabric, a reminder of the power he now carried. The wind was stronger, and the ground seemed to shift underfoot as if the land itself was restless. By the time they reached the broken bridge, they found it had been completely destroyed. The chasm stretched wide and dark, and no path remained. Daniel scanned the edge, looking for another way across. That was when the sound of boots reached his ears. From the shadows of a nearby rock outcrop, armored figures emerged, Lord Ceryn at their head, his red armor reflecting the weak sunlight. "I warned you, human," Ceryn called out. "The plains would be your grave. But since you survived, I'll have to make sure it ends here." He raised his hand, and his soldiers spread out, blocking every escape. "The heart belongs to the queen, not to an outsider." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. Ceryn stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Daniel and Ceryn. "The queen commanded his return," Ceryn said. "Stand aside." Ceryn's smirk was thin. "The queen will. Thank me for removing this mistake before it divides our people. And when I bring her the heart, I will be the one she crowns." He drew his blade, the metal glowing faintly with some inner heat. Daniel's mind raced. The narrow path and the Feyend chasm meant there was no room to run. He could only fight. He loosened the pouch and pulled out the heart. Its glow flared brighter than before, filling the air with that deep, resonant hum. The soldiers hesitated for a heartbeat, their eyes drawn to the light. Daniel felt the warmth spread through him. Again, sharpening his focus and steadying his breathing, Ceryn lunged first, his blade cutting through the air with deadly precision. Daniel stepped aside, guided more by instinct than thought, the heart's light casting Ceryn's shadow across the cracked ground. Their weapons clashed, Daniel's stolen spear against Ceryn's glowing blade, sending sparks into the wind. The soldiers closed in, but Ceryn moved with sudden speed, cutting one down and forcing another back toward the cliff edge. The fight became a blur of movement. Every time Daniel thought he would be overwhelmed, the heart's glow surged, his body moving as though it knew the next strike before it came. He ducked under a swing, slammed the butt of his spear into a soldier's chest, and spun to block another. The golden light reflected in Ceryn's eyes, making his expression twist. From confidence to rage, with a roar, Ceryn charged again. Daniel caught the strike on his spear and shoved forward, forcing Ceryn back a step. "You think a stone can make you a king?" Ceryn spat. "You're nothing. You don't know our people, our world, our ways." Daniel's voice was steady. "Maybe not, but your crown chose me, not you. And it's time you stopped fighting it." He pushed harder, the heart glowing so bright it turned the dust around them into glittering motes. The ground beneath Ceryn cracked. With one last shove, Daniel sent him stumbling toward the edge. Ceryn's boots slipped on loose stone, and he toppled into the chasm, his shout fading into the depths. The remaining soldiers froze, unsure whether to fight or flee. Ceryn's voice cut through the silence. "The trial is over. The chosen returns to the queen." Slowly, the soldiers backed away, vanishing into the jagged terrain. By nightfall, the city walls rose ahead. Word of their return had already spread. Crowds gathered in the streets as Daniel was led to the throne room, the heart still glowing in his hands. The queen sat upon her throne, the crown on her head pulsing faintly in response to the crystal. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You bring back the heart, and you return alive despite the dangers that awaited you. Tell me, human, do you seek the throne?" Daniel hesitated. The crown's glow seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, and in that moment, he understood what the visions had meant. "I don't seek it for myself," he said. "But if wearing it means ending the war between your people and giving them a chance at peace, then I'll bear it." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, as though weighing the truth of his words. She rose, stepping down from the throne. With both hands, she lifted the crown from her head. The entire hall fell silent. "The crown has denied me for years. It will not deny you now." She placed it gently upon his head. The golden light from both crown and heart flared together, filling the chamber with a brilliance that made the onlookers shield their eyes. When the light faded, Daniel stood taller, the crown resting easily as though it had been made for him. The queen stepped back, her voice ringing through the hall. "The crown has chosen. Let all who hear my words know this human is ruler of Auralith." Cheers and cries filled the chamber, though some faces still carried doubt. But none could deny the law or the light that had chosen him. Daniel met the queen's gaze one last time. For the first time since their meeting, there was no cold calculation in her eyes, only respect. The journey had ended, but he knew the real challenge was only beginning. The crown had claimed him, and now he would have to prove, not just to the queen's people, but to himself, that its choice had been right.